Hey everyone, Howie Fisher from Fisher's Flies. Thanks for checking in. Today I'm tying up a pretty simple CDC jig pattern. This is a pattern that I kind of just whipped together at my Bugs and Brews that I run here in town. Someone asked me to demonstrate some techniques, and so I did. I grabbed what materials I had, and this is what I ended up with. So for the hook, I'm using a size 16 jig force hook from Fulling Mill. And I'm pairing that here with a 2.8 millimeter slotted tungsten bead, also from Fulling Mill. And for the thread today, I'm just using UTC 70 denier in olive. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with my thread right behind the bead. And I'm going to take a bunch of wraps to secure that bead in place, since I'm not using any wire here. And once I've got that bead locked in place, I'm going to go ahead and snip my tag free with my Resin scissors. For the tail on this fly, I'm using CDL from Whiting in dark Pardo. That's Coq de Leon. I'm going to go ahead and grab about half a dozen to a dozen fibers. In my opinion, this isn't an exact science. My preference is to have enough for the tail to actually show up a little bit, to look like a tail, especially if you're trying to imitate mayflies. If you're using too few, in my opinion, you might as well just not use it, which is okay. Some patterns you don't call for the tail. It's just up to personal preference, in my opinion. For the dubbing, I'm using Eco Warrior dub from Fulling Mill. This is one of their new dubbings. Phenomenal blend of dubbing. Dubs on a noodle like this really, really well, as you can see, is pretty foolproof, pretty simple. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with this dubbing loop actually directly behind the bead, and I'm going to reverse dub it. So I'm going to dub this down to where the tail is, and then I'm going to use my thread to counter rib the body. And so instead of using wire and instead of using just one more material, I'm just using the thread itself here. For the collar, I'm using CDC feathers in brown, also from Fulling Mill. And I'm going to go ahead and grab one feather. You can see I already used one side of this, and I'm going to use my dubbing clip from Stonfo here. I'm going to get the one side in the clip, and then I'm going to go ahead and snip that stem off. I'm going to go ahead and twist my thread counterclockwise and flatten it out to create a split thread dubbing loop. I'll link a video to that video above. And then I'm going to go ahead and split that thread and insert my CDC feathers. Once I've got them where I want them, I'm going to go ahead and snip off those butt ends to make it just a little bit cleaner. And then I'm going to start cording my thread up by spinning that clockwise again. This will cord that up and close that dubbing loop. Once I've got it where I want it, I'll just go ahead and wrap it. And I'm just going to brush those fibers back every time I wrap it. And last step, honestly, you could finish the fly just like this, but I'm going to go ahead and add just a touch of flash using tactical Microflash dubbing in olive from Fulling Mill. And again, just a touch. This is just enough to push those fibers backwards, those CDC feathers backwards, and add just a tiny bit of flash. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take my whip finish tool and whip finish this fly. Going to give it a 3 or 4 turn whip finish. Snip my thread, and there you go. And of course, on all my flies, I'm going to hit it with just a touch of Solarez bone dry. Really make sure that it's durable. It's not going to fall apart or anything like that. But again, this was the product of a tying night that I run, and just a super simple pattern. Tie them up, fish them, let me know what you think.